Hey guys, it's Gorio, and welcome to the first in a series of videos from the 2018 Spirit of St. Louis Airshow. The first one's going to be the lead pilot of the Phillips 66 era stars, giving you guys a walk around of the Canadian F18. So enjoy that, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
A lot now. They've since upgraded them, but I believe they were 80K of memory. 80K. Your phones are like in the gigabyte, and the processing power is equivalently slow. So the airframe was not, it was limited by its processing power as the technology changed. The airplane went through a midlife update about 10 years ago where they pulled out all the archaic hardware and updated it. The hardware in the original version was the 70s technology, even though the airplane actually appeared in the 80s. It is a fighter attack airplane, which means it will do an air intercept roll and it'll drop bombs. There's two versions of it. The A model is single seat. That's what this one is. The B model, we called it the tub, had a back seater, and the back seater served no purpose other than to put the instructor in there for training. The airplane is so easy to fly that you solo it after the second trip, and the simulators are so good that by the time you get in the jet, it feels like you've been there for a year. So you get one duel, and then you're off to do the solo. The engines, obviously they're in there mounted on the back. There's two of them, General Electric, I forget the model. They're 10,000 pounds a side in military power, 16,000 pounds a side in afterburner. The 32,000 pounds total thrust in afterburner. The airplane weighs about 25,000 pounds without fuel, and internally it'll take 12,000 pounds of gas. So it's 37,000 pounds with 32,000 pounds of thrust. It's close to 1-to-1. When he flies it in the show, he's probably going to be close to 1-to-1. That means the thrust equals the weight, which means you can accelerate going vertically, like a rocket. And they do that demo on the training course. You start at 250 knots, you put it into burner, and you see the speed building as you're going straight up. It's pretty eye-watering. Fancy stuff. The Canadian version is the same. They wanted different landing gear, but it would have doubled the price. So they just said, okay, we'll just take the Navy gear, and you can see how robust it is for landing on carriers. My hardest landing is 5G. You can dial up the G on landing, and you know, it tells you everything you do in this airplane. So underneath the engine there, you can see the cupped out area along the gear. That's for a missile. And then he's got the pylons stripped off, but there's two pylons on each wing, and you can carry missiles or bombs or fuel tanks or whatever. He's even got the center. You see the centerline pylon there? Right under the NORAD, you see this little fin sticking out. It's called a pylon, and it can hold usually a centerline fuel tank. The fuel tanks hold 2,000 pounds of fuel, and when I was flying them 28 years ago, they were $20,000 a piece without gas in them. So when we went over into Iraq, and you know, we couldn't get back unless we jettisoned the empty fuel tanks. Each 4-ship that went over and jettisoned those tanks, that was what, $250,000. They're underneath the engines, and I don't want to get close to them because I haven't talked to the Canadians. So, but you can. They're little canisters, and on the you guys think because we're old we can't play video games. On the throttle and the stick, there are, with the combinations of switches and knobs, 128 functions. And you got to be able to know how to do that while you're pulling 7G weighing 1,400 pounds. So it's an easy airplane to fly. It's a challenging airplane to fight, single seat. Over on the front here, this is where the radar is under that cone. And very, very good radar. It can detect targets out to a long way, and it can also sort those targets, and you know, that's what we use as the radar for air-to-air. seeing the bad guys who are coming at us. And then the radar is also a dual role, air to air and air to ground. It can make a map of the Earth, and you can see, you know, if we're above the cloud, you can see targets on airfields and stuff, so you can blow them up. It's really fun. To the 776, you see that strip? They're all over the airplane if you look closely. Anybody know what that's for?
Lights? Green lights?
Very close. Yeah, it is lighting. But what's it for? Why do we need lights?
Formation light.
When?
At night.
At night. Absolutely.
Man, that's...
Yep. You see above the 776, there's a long, skinny door. Anybody knows what that does? What's that? Exactly. Yes, that you throw a switch and out pops this big arm, and there's your refueling probe. So they want to stow it, obviously for drag. When you don't need it, remember the old A4? It's got it sticking out all the time.
Yeah.
Well, you're carrying around drag, and that's a weight penalty or a thrust penalty. It's got a bunch of antennas. They're basically to electronically detect bad guys. And the airplane has leading edge and trailing edge flaps. They work in two positions, automatic and half and full. You're seeing the full position right there. They will go in automatic, which is what you set them for in flight. They will go to that position if you get slow enough. The way when you're dogfighting another F-18, the way you can tell their energy state is you look at the flaps. If the flaps are out, he's going to die because he's out of energy, and you have it, and you're going to whack him. So it's just, and we don't tell the new guys that trick because they got to learn that on their own. More strip lighting on the back. You can see the stabilator. Here, they're absolutely massive. They're about the size of the wing on that F5 over there. And if you were to fly in formation with an F-18, you can't believe it. He's flying perfectly straight, and the controls are going all over the place. I mean, it's just bizarre to watch. On the back, somebody asked about the tail hook, the arresting hook. Right there. That it's got the biggest control in the airplane next to the throttle and stick is the arresting hook. I mean, you cannot miss it. You can literally shut your eyes, put your hand over here, and you're going to get to the arresting hook. It's about that big, and for a reason. You know, you want to be able to find that thing for landing on the boat, or even landing on the land, because if you have a problem with landing gear or brakes or anything like that, or flaps, and you're coming in fast, you want to take the cable. Throw the hook down, and you'll take the arrival end cable, or they have departure end cables. Has anybody ever seen an arresting cable? How they work? It's a big steel cable. It's about maybe 1.5 inches in diameter. It's braided steel. And they have these pucks around them so that they're sitting up off the ground, so that shoe on the back can snag the cable. Now, you'd think that snagging a cable would be something pretty easy to do. There's actually one thing that you want to do, or don't want to do, when you're taking a cable. Anybody guess what that might be?
Let off the throttle.
No, you can be max afterburner. It'll stop you.
The
Yep.
cable's that strong, it'll snap you up with.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. You can be at full power. That cable's going to stop you. But what don't you want to be doing?
Move your rudder.
Close.
Rolling?
You don't want to be on the brakes, because if you're on the brakes,
You're gonna, yeah.
the hook
No, yeah.
the hook will be about 1 foot off the ground, and that's not going to do you any good. And we lost an airplane learning that lesson, because it was on a rejected takeoff, and he was on the brakes, threw the hook down, no problem, but didn't trust the capability of the arresting gear to stop the airplane. He was on the brakes. You know, I'm not judging, I'm just saying, you know, you see that collision coming up to you, you're on the brakes, and it's a very powerful thing to not be on them. And the hook was about 10 inches off the ground. So he went off the end, punched out. The airplane was destroyed, but they rebuilt it at a cost of $40 million. A couple of interesting statistics. When you're plugged into the tanker, and we would tank day or night. All weather, didn't matter. As long as you could see the tanker, all you need to see was the basket. You'd get on the tanker and load gas. The upload rate is about 2,000 pounds a minute, which means it would take up to 5 minutes on the tanker to fill that thing. You never start tanking empty. The limitation on the tanker was turbulence, because this is a probe and drogue system, unlike the Air Force, which is that boom, and the turbulence can exceed the length of the hose. I was on the tanker one night, and it was a KC-135. They mount a hose on the end of the refueling boom, 9 feet long, and the basket weighs 450 pounds. So what you have to do is you have to plug into that basket and push the hose, and it forms a U. And the turbulence was longer than the U, so we bingoed out. Scrambled with 2 more guys. Yeah. The other thing is, when you have what's called a tip-off, which means you'll come into the basket and you'll hit it on one side, and at 400 miles an hour, when you hit it at one side, it will cock off a little bit, and then the wind wants to straighten it out, but you've tipped off, and it comes back down, and it'll brush the side of the airplane and knock some stuff off, which will go through the engine. It's not a good day. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a vulnerability on that. So I had a buddy of mine. I've been fortunate. I never had that happen, but I had a buddy of mine who had a General in his back seat one night, and they had a tip off. It trashed the right motor, and it came back on one. I asked him. I said, "Did he send you the bill?" He said, "No." He said, "Stuff happens." So military aviation is expensive. You guys see the F-35? We don't even know how much that costs. It depends who you ask. Those engines, when I was flying them, were about $2 million a piece. Anybody know how long it takes to change an engine on one of these?
Not very long, presumably, right?
Yeah, how long is not very long?
A couple hours.
A couple hours? It's pretty close. It takes 45 minutes for McDonnell Douglas or Boeing to change an engine for their engine team. An operational squadron, it might take about an hour and a half. I was a flight check pilot on these, and whenever you do a double engine change or you do major flight controls, a test pilot has to go and fly it before it goes back to the line. And I got a call at 9 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hey, we got an airplane just in for a double engine change. We're doing a test flight." "Okay, what time?" 1 o'clock. So it's fast.